We are live and recording. Well, welcome to the webinar. This is Frank Patrick. You are participating in the How to Get Probate Listings training. Today is our first session. Should last about an hour. The session is live. I am recording it. There is a box on the right-hand side of your screen where you can type your questions in. As we go, I'll attempt to answer those questions when we get to that portion of the webinar, and then I will stay on the webinar until all of your questions are answered. So just real quickly, I want to go over what you signed up for. So 3 live webinar sessions today, 1 hour, next week 1 hour, and the following week 1 hour. We're going to go over what's included in those. You're going to get 4 of my best letters and instructions on what to mail after those 4. You're going to get access to a private Facebook group. So later today, you'll receive an email from me with a link to access the private Facebook group. It's going to go live this afternoon. It is just for the participants on this training. You're going to get a list of all of my resources, so where I order my envelopes, the pins, all of that good stuff. And the first 20 people that signed up actually qualified for a private coaching call. So you'll also be receiving an email so you can schedule that coaching call. Now the coaching calls will happen after all 3 sessions, all 3 webinars. So they will actually be available for you as early as April 1st. I'll be sending you a link to let you know that you qualified for the free coaching call, and then I'll be sending you a link to my calendar where you can schedule the call, and I'll have the times where I'm available for the entire month of April. All you got to do is click the date and time that you want, and it'll send me an email, and I'll accept it, and then I will call you on that day. So here's our schedule. Week 1, this is understanding the probate process. Unfortunately, guys, this is all about a legal process. There's only so much I can do to make it exciting. In week 2, we get to the good stuff. How to get the leads. I know this is what you're here for. How to get the leads and how to sort them. And then week 3 is how to market to the leads. So we'll be going over the letters, the 4 that I have pre-written for you, and then what to mail after the 4th week. How to get the telephone numbers for the prospects, so the technology that I use to get the telephone numbers, and then what to say when you call. So that's week 3. So week 1 is understanding the probate process. Week 2, how to get the leads. Week 3, how to market. You only need to register 1 time, so you're here, you're registered for all 3 sessions. Same day, same time each week, 3 weeks in a row. You're going to get a reminder each week 1 day before the webinar, and then you get a reminder 1 hour before the webinar. It's always the same link for all 3. And so you're going to get, you got 2 emails, 1 yesterday, 1 an hour before today. Next week you'll get an email on Tuesday with the link, and you'll get an email 1 hour before with the link. But it's the same link. We just keep sending it to you in case you delete it or throw it away. All 3 of the webinars are live. All 3 are recorded. Within 24 hours of the conclusion of the webinar, you will receive an email from GoToWebinar with a copy of the recording, or it's a link to the recording, and you can download that recording or just save that link and listen to it whenever you want. I think they keep it up for 6 months. Later today, you're going to get an email from me with an invitation to join the private Facebook group. You will also get an email with access to 2 documents that we're going to discuss today. That's going to be part of your homework. I set up the private Facebook group. It's the fastest way to get a response from me if you have a question. And so the private Facebook group is primarily in the beginning for you to ask questions as we go through this process, the learning process, and as you get your marketing set up. Also, the reason we do it via Facebook is because chances are if you have a question, you know, the other 40 people on here may have the exact same question. So if you post it, it will help the others. Now, if you have a question that's confidential and you don't want to put it in the private Facebook group, you can send me an email at frank@ariorenegades.com. So today's webinar is live. I encourage you to take notes. You can type your question to me at any time. I'm going to stay online until I answer all the questions. There will be some homework because you're going to need to do some research on your own after today's webinar. And the reason is every state has a slightly different probate process. 99% of it will be the same as what you're going to learn here today, but there's going to be some minor variances, typically in the timeline or in the titles. We'll talk about it as we go. And a disclaimer, I'm not an attorney, and the information I'm giving today is not intended as legal advice. It's simply to guide you in your marketing to obtain probate listings as a real estate agent. So let's talk about the basics of probate, because you need to have a basic understanding of how the probate process works so you can understand what's going through the mind of your prospect, the person in charge of liquidating the estate, as you market to them. So we're going to talk about what is probate. Probate files are public information, so it's easy to find those files. We're going to talk about the key players in the probate process, how probate starts. We're going to go over the flow of events and a timeline of the probate process, and then talk about the 4 different types of probate cases. So what is probate? Probate is the legal process for the transfer of assets, including houses, cars, stocks, bonds, boats, bank accounts, precious metals, any assets from a deceased person's name to his or her estate. So in the beginning, the house, the cars, etc., are all in an individual's name. When that person passes away, the probate process is started, and all the titles and deeds to everything that's owned gets changed over into the name of the estate so that it can be sold and distributed to the heirs. Probate is a way to settle any tax liabilities, and it's a process. And this process can last between 9 and 18 months. So you want to make a note here. This is going to be part of your homework process. Or your homework assignment is to determine how long the probate process is in your state, and we're going to talk about how to figure that out. It's moderately important for you to know what to expect, because let's say the probate process is 18 months in your state, and it typically takes 9 months before the house can be listed. You're going to want to space out your marketing letters a little more than someone who lives in a state where the average probate process is 9 months and the house can be sold in 3. So there's going to be a couple differences in each state, and we're going to, I'll make sure to make a note of that, but you should write this down. Find out how long the average probate case takes in your state, and find out on average when can they sell the house if there's a house in the estate. And we're going to talk in a minute on how to do that. So when we get the leads, in the beginning, those leads don't have all of their paperwork done yet. So when we pull probate files, when we start to market to them, in the beginning, they don't have permission to sell the house because the legal paperwork's not done yet. And typically this scenario is about 3 months long on average. So that means the first 3 months it doesn't do us any good to come right out and ask for the listing because they can't legally give it to you. The next 3 to 9 months is when all the legal paperwork gets completed and your prospect can legally list and sell the house. So that's why when you get on week 2, next week, when we're discussing the leads and sorting them out, and week 3 when we're talking about the marketing materials and the mailing, this is the reason why we build a relationship with our prospects for the first 3 months before we come right out and start asking them to do business with us. So probate takes place in the county of the decedent's residence. So we're going to, from now on, the dead person will be known as the decedent. Residence, legal residence, is where they have their driver's license or where they file their taxes. Here in Arizona, we have a lot of snowbirds. And so it kind of, you know, some of the snowbirds own a home. Well, their legal resident may be in Minnesota. So probate would happen in Minnesota. If they've moved here full time or determined that this is declared this as their primary residence for tax purposes and get a driver's license here in Arizona, then the probate would happen here in Arizona. Doesn't matter where they own the property, it matters where they have declared their legal residence. And that's typically your driver's license and your tax returns. Where did they file taxes last year? What does their driver's license say? Probate oversees the settlement of the estate. It validates the terms of the will if there is one. And you can't avoid it even if you have a will. The only way to avoid probate is having a living trust that's fully funded, and that's less than 5% of the population. So probate files are public information, and that's what makes it great for real estate agents, because as soon as you make something public information, that means we can find it, and now we know who's going to sell a house. The information can be accessed anywhere in the country. Some counties do limit the amount of files that you can view at any one time, and they may have different ways for accessing this information. For instance, I live in Pinal County, but I primarily work in Maricopa County. Maricopa County does not allow you to access probate files online. So we have to get it a different way. We're going to discuss that next week. If I wanted to go to the courthouse here, I can go to the courthouse, and there is more than one probate court in Maricopa County. So I prefer to access the information online. And next week I'm going to show you exactly how I do that. But the most direct way is to contact the local superior court in your county, and they'll tell you where the probate files are, and they'll give you all the information. The key players in the probate process: the personal representative, the administrator or executor. It's important you get this right on your letters. So when we're marketing to them, if the court has appointed them as a personal representative, when we send them a letter, we don't want to refer to them as the executor. So we want to use the same title that the court in your county uses. Most states have now replaced the term executor with the term personal representative. So you're going to see it used interchangeably. In fact, it's possible the person's will was written 20 years ago when the term was executor, and today when you submit it to the court will read the will and appoint someone to be the personal representative, because that is the new terminology. Either title, executor or personal representative, tells you that the person had a will. Executor, personal representative means they had a will. If you see the term administrator or administratrix, that's the female version of administrator, that means the person died without a will, and the court has appointed someone to be the administrator to help settle the estate. So you need to find out in your state, is it executor or personal representative? It's one or the other. In every state, if the person dies without a will, it's administrator. Next most important person is the probate clerk. This is the clerk of the court, but for the probate files. Some counties will have their own probate court, completely separate from the superior court. In other areas, it'll just be a part of the Superior Court. But in most large counties, there's going to be a special clerk that handles the probate files. So you want to find out in your state, number one, your county or the counties. Some of you might live in an area where you're going to market to 2 counties. You're going to find out where the probate court, where the probate cases are heard. So there's going to be either at the Superior Court or at a probate court. And if you're in a large county like Maricopa, where I'm at, there may be, here there's 4 locations, 4 different locations. You need to find out who the probate clerk is, the probate clerk. The next most important person is the probate attorney. Some states require an attorney to file for probate. Some states will allow an individual to do it on their own. But the attorney generally files the legal paperwork at the courthouse on behalf of the estate and may have some influence over who gets the listing. Most of the time they just don't care. And then of course the heirs. The heirs, national average is around $175,000 inheritance. So heirs can become potential buyers or real estate investors. So they're important to the process. So heirs, if there's a will be listed in the will. Oftentimes you'll get a chance to meet them when you list the property. If not, you want to get you can get their email address from the administrator or personal representative. And it's a good idea once you take the listing to introduce yourself to the heirs and copy them on marketing updates. Because once again, these people, if they're in your local area, they oftentimes become buyers once the estate is settled. If they're out of state, they often become buyers, and you can refer them out to someone and make a referral commission, or they may be interested in becoming real estate investors and buying properties in your area. Now that they have you have their trust, and they realize your expertise in your local market, it's not uncommon for them to become real estate investors in your area and utilize you. But they're a very, very important part of the probate process. So how does probate start? And we'll talk about this a little more next week, because we like to gather the leads when the probate case starts, so we can track it from the very beginning. Well, first, you need a decedent. So once someone passes away and we get the death certificate, if there's a will, you read the will and find out who is listed as the executor or personal representative. And then that's the person that takes the will, submits it to the court, the probate court, and starts the process. If you're in a state that requires an attorney, the executor or personal representative is responsible for hiring a probate attorney to start the process. Oftentimes we find that people in states that don't require an attorney will open up probate on their own and then soon realize that they're in over their head and hire a probate attorney. And if you're in one of those states, you have an opportunity to help those people choose an attorney. And by helping them choose an attorney, you can score some points with some local attorneys that handle probate, and they can in turn help you with referrals as well. So if a person dies with a will, they're now known as the decedent, and the will list an executor or personal representative. If there is no will, usually a family member will come forward and hire a probate attorney to petition the court to open probate and settle the estate. At this point, the court will determine who the heirs are based on lineage or relationship. So is the decedent's mother and father alive? Did the decedent have children? Did the decedent have brothers and sisters? If you die without any relatives, then your estate will be liquidated and the money will go to the state. So if there's a will, we refer to the person in charge as the executor or personal representative. If there's no will, then we refer to the person in charge as the administrator. Any questions so far? I know this is all this stuff is kind of boring, but we got to get through it to get to the good stuff. All right. So once again, for probate to start, if there's a will, it directs the person who's the executor or the administrator to submit the will to the court for validation and to open up probate. If you're in a state that requires you to have an attorney to open probate, then the executor or personal representative will hire a probate attorney. Now they have the authority to do it on their own, but typically they will consult with the heirs, who are also designated or listed in the will. And it's this executor or the attorney that is hired by the estate to initiate the probate process. If there's no will, typically there will be a relative that will step forward and petition the court to appoint them as administrator and initiate probate, or they'll hire an attorney and have the attorney petition the court to appoint them as administrator and initiate probate. If there's no family members at all, usually it's the state and the county will want their taxes paid, and so the court will initiate probate on their own so they can get paid. But typically you have a family member steps forward and says, hey, there's no will. They talk to the rest of the family members and they're like, okay, let's hire an attorney and let's get this probate process started. And then the first hurdle will be to have the court appoint an administrator. As soon as the court appoints an administrator, that would be your prospect. Obviously that person is now court appointed, and now the process will work very similar to if they did have a will. So once again, either your executor, which is the same as personal representative, that means they had a will, or the administrator, that means there was no will have a choice to start with an attorney or without an attorney, and they'll file to, first of all, submit the will, second of all, to open probate. And the person that is asking to open the probate case is known as the petitioner. So how do the attorneys get paid? Well, it varies from state to state. Most states have a system very much like this. It's called the 4321 system. And the probate attorney gets paid a percentage of the estate's total value. So one of the things you have to do to get through probate court is to determine the value of the entire estate, and that means the house, the car, the bank accounts, the investment accounts, everything combined. What's the value of it? And this determines what the attorney is going to get paid. Now, interesting to know, the attorney gets paid last. So after all the taxes are paid, after all the outstanding bills are paid, after the real estate agent sells the house and gets paid, after the court gets paid for all their filing fees, then the attorney gets paid and the estate is settled. So for instance, with the 4321 system, which you'll find in most states, if a house is priced at $500,000, so you list it for $500,000, the attorney is going to get 4% of the first $100,000, so that's $4,000. They get 3% of the next $100,000, that's $3,000, and they get 2% of the next $300,000, that's $6,000. So that means the attorney is going to get paid $13,000 just on the sale of the house, just on the value of the house. If the estate was worth $1 million total, you can see that it adds up quickly. And most states pay the executor or personal representative, which is one and the same, and or the administrator if the person died without a will, on the same system. So in this case, person dies, they have a will or don't have a will, it goes through probate, the house sells for $500,000, the attorney makes $13,000, the executor, personal representative, or administrator gets paid $13,000. Now you will see in some cases, if it's family, like for instance my family, if my father were to pass away and he leaves me as the executor of the estate, I have 2 sisters and 1 brother, I may decide to relinquish payment so all of us can get an equal split. I don't have to, but to keep peace amongst my brothers and sisters, in this case, I may elect not to take the money from the court and just tell the judge it's my wish that all of the administrator or executor fees be waived and just be left in the estate and distributed as per the will. That's my prerogative as the executor or administrator. But the attorney gets paid. So with just this estate, let's say there's just a $500,000 house as an example, typically you're going to look at about $26,000 paid out to the attorney and the administrator, plus all the filing fees, etc. It's really, really expensive. In comparison, the average cost of setting up a living trust before you die is about $2,500. So if you haven't done so, I recommend that you do this now. This should be on your goal to do this this year, is to get a living trust set up for yourself, and to encourage you, if your parents are still living, encourage your parents to do the same. I'm going home to visit my mom back to Missouri in May, and we already have an appointment with our family attorney there, and we're going to get an estate set up for her right now because we don't want to pay an attorney $13,000 after she passes away. We'd rather pay $2,500 now and make it a much easier process. So attorneys want to work with us, and here's why. Because the attorneys get paid at the end of the probate process. They get paid at the settlement of the estate. Along the way, they can ask for money from the court to pay for filing fees, but they are doing all of the work, and this work could last 6, 9, or even 18 months, and they get paid at the very end. Unlike us, see, we sell the house, we get paid at closing. The attorney doesn't get his piece until the very, very end. Oftentimes it's the house that holds up the settlement of the estate, so the attorneys can really be our friends. Oh, there was a, excuse the typo there. So the final accounting paperwork gives an itemized list of all of the fees that the attorney has requested. The court has to approve those before they can be paid. And once again, if all the money is tied up in the house and it's going up for sale, the attorney is motivated to work with real estate professionals to help you contact the personal representative and close the deal. And there is an incentive to work with attorneys, and an incentive for the attorneys to work with us. We typically find that they do not choose the real estate agent, though. So the attorney is motivated to work with you. Your commission comes from the sale of the property. It does not. It isn't dependent on the probate process. Put together a flow of events, and this came from most of this information came from Arizona's website, Arizona's state website, but I'm going to send this out to each of you in a editable file so you can edit it if there are any differences between Arizona and your state. So for instance, over here, let me get my pen here. Anywhere where it says executor, if your state refers to them as personal representative, you'll want to change it on this flow chart. So that's what I'm talking about by editing it. So once again, I'm going to send this to you today in a Word document so you can edit it, because this will become a marketing material for you, right? So this is something you can share with your prospects, because this puts it in a visual flow chart for them so they can understand what they have to do to get the estate through the probate process. And then we're also I'm going to give you another one. I'll show you it in the next page, but it's kind of a flow chart with the 10 steps. Step number 1 is read the will. 2 is safeguard the assets. So typically you'll see the executor or administrator, as soon as they have a confirmation by the courts, you'll see that they will change all of the bank accounts into the name of the estate. They'll change the title of the car into the name of the estate. The deed on the house will be changed to the name of the estate. They'll file for taxes in the name of the estate. So that's safeguarding the assets. They can petition the court for probating of the will, assemble and inventory all the assets. So they have to dig through, Grandpa's filing cabinet and find out what he owned and make a list of it. They have to get an appraisal on all the assets. So if there's a house, a car, they have to find out what it's worth. Then they handle all the administrative stuff, pay the bills, file the taxes, settle all proper claims, and then they'll distribute the estate. And at the very end, they obtain a final discharge. So it's over. I'm going to send this. This is the probate timeline. So this could vary depending on your state, and this will be part of your homework. I'm going to send this document to you, and you're going to find out on each of these steps if these times are appropriate for your state. Easiest way to do this is to go to your state's website. Most of them will have this timeline on their website. If not, you can Google probate attorneys for your state, and most of them will have this timeline on their website. You're probably going to have to do a little reading. You may have to purchase a book. I purchased a book on Amazon for Arizona. It's called the Arizona Estate Administration Answer Book. It's by Thomas J. Bowman, attorney at law. I found it on Amazon. It was about 20 bucks, but it answers all the questions in English instead of legalese, and gave me the timeline for this. It's going to be pretty close for your state, but it's very helpful to have this customized, and this is a great marketing piece. Once again, this is something else that you could include in your marketing to your probate prospects, and this is something that they'll not throw away because this kind of helps them determine what they need to do when. They can tape this to the refrigerator, and of course it would have your name, telephone number, etc. on it. Much better than a football calendar, right? This is important, and likely no one else will be sending them this kind of gift, if you will. There's some special types of probate, and I don't market to any of them, but they do have a little bit of opportunity here. Typically, your regular probate files, that's all I'm looking for. I'm looking to see if there's real estate involved in the case. If there is, they go into my contact records management system, and we're going to send letters and call. You'll also see conservatorship cases. This means the person's alive but can't take care of themselves anymore. Think of grandma got dementia. She can't take care of herself anymore because she can't make legal decisions. Someone in the family will step in, apply to the court to become the conservator of the estate. Usually, what we find is the first thing they have to do is sell the house to get the money to put grandma in a memory care facility, which here in Arizona costs between $6,000 and $8,000 a month. So most of the families don't have the cash themselves. Grandma doesn't have that much money in the bank. They need to sell the house quick so they can get her the care that she needs. If she doesn't have a irrevocable living trust that's been open for 5 years. She's going to have to spend down her own money before Medicare or Medicaid, don't remember which one, will pay for her care first, so that you have to sell the house if you don't have a trust set up already. And I think the look back period is about 5 years. So if grandma doesn't have a trust now, she gets Parkinson's disease or she gets dementia, Alzheimer's disease, there's no way around it. You have to sell the house. You have to pay all of her money first. And once her money is gone, the government will pay for her care. So there is opportunity here. Where I live, there's just so many probate cases, I don't worry about it. But where you live, if there are fewer than, say, 50 probate prospects a month, you may look into marketing to conservatorship as well. It works very much the same way. You'll also find there's guardianship. So mom and dad both die in a plane crash. There's 2 kids. Kids get the house. Kids aren't 18. They can't make decisions for themselves yet, so the court will appoint someone to take care of them. And normally this real estate, typically we don't see it sold, but I know some people that do market to guardianship files. It takes a little more investigation, so this is definitely a possibility, but not something that I do. And then there are people who have living trusts, and the living trust was created and funded, and then something happened where an asset was taken out of the living trust or never got put in. So we just went through this with my father-in-law. We took him to an attorney, got a living trust done. It's about $2,500 for everything. But then my father-in-law was responsible to change the name on all of his accounts and property to the name of his trust. And I made sure he did it because I know what happens if you don't. But a lot of times elderly people will just get that living trust done and they forget, and they don't change the deed of the house to the name of the trust. They don't change their bank accounts. They don't change their investment accounts. And if you don't have it in the trust when you die, you're going to have to go to probate court and petition the court to put it back in the trust. And if the court won't do it, then it has to go through the full probate process. So this is how occasionally you'll see living trusts end up in probate court. Today for your homework, I've got just a few things for you to do. First of all, you have to determine what county you are in or that you're going to market to. Some of you, like myself and my sister, we live, I live on the border of Maricopa and Pinal County. My sister lives on the border of Jackson County and Lafayette County. So each of us are going to market to both. We're going to market to prospects in both state or both counties. That means there's 2 different probate courts that we're dealing with. You need to find out where is the Superior Court for your county, and are the probate cases held in the Superior Court, or is there a separate probate court? Get the name and or get the address of the probate court or the Superior Court where the cases are heard, and then there'll be a probate court clerk. You want to get that person's name and telephone number. You can call them, but they're so busy, I would recommend that you just go down there. And this is a good field trip for you. Most of you are not going to be doing a lot of work at the courthouse. This will all be done online, but initially this is a good way for you to get a better feel and a better understanding, is to go down to probate court and go in and meet the probate clerk and tell them that you're a real estate agent. You specialize in working with people who are going through the probate process, and you are learning. And they'll be very nice to you. I mean, they're busy, but they'll be nice to you. Then you want to find a book on the probate process for your state. I found mine on Amazon. I simply typed in Arizona and probate, and I found the Arizona State Administration Answer Book. So it may have the name probate. It's definitely going to have the name of your state. It may have probate. It may have estate administrator or administration. It may have personal representative. It may have executor in the title. Don't buy one that's generic to the entire United States, like Probate for Dummies, because that's the same general information I've given you today. We need you to find out if there's something different about your state, something different from what I've gone over today. You may or may not read the whole book. You may just keep the book and use it as a reference tool as you're dealing with your probate customers. Because remember, our job is to sell the real estate. Our job is not to give legal advice. So I know some people that market to probate leads like to include the name of a book. So you get a lead, and the administrator. You send them a letter. You call them and talk to them, and they'll tell them about a book that they recently read and where they can get it. That's being helpful. That's being a resource to them. But we don't give them legal advice. So you'll modify the flow chart to fit your state, and because you're going to use these in your marketing. Search for probate attorneys in your area and save their websites in your favorites. Tons of information on probate attorneys' websites and my information. There's 4 or 5 really big ones here that have huge FAQ or Q&A sessions on their websites with a ton of information on it. And so I like to bookmark all of those and refer to them. And once again, that's something else that you can help your probate prospects with. So when they ask you, hey, do you know of any attorneys? You can say, yeah, I can email you over a list. I've got 4 or 5 here that I have saved on my computer. They have great websites. I can refer them over to you, or send them over to you. So something else that you can use in your marketing arsenal. So that's your homework. Next week, we're going to be discussing how to get the leads. So where to find the files. Most of them will be available online. And that's next week. And then the third week are the letters and calls. So I have all the letters pre-written for you. I've got some call scripts for you. But today, you're going to watch for an email from me. And in that email, you're going to receive a link to download the 2 documents that you're going to edit that we discussed today. I'll also include your homework, what you need to do before next week. And I'm going to include a link to our private Facebook group. And you'll be able to log in. I'll have that, that Facebook group will be open as soon as I send you that link. The same email will also have my email address. It's coming from Frank at REO Renegades. So if you have any confidential questions you want to ask me, you can send those directly to me via email. All right. Let's see. First question comes from Roger. What if more than one family member wants to become an administrator? Okay. So we have a decedent with no will. 2 family members, 2 separate family members step forward and say, I want to be the administrator of the estate. Well, whichever one gets there first, so whoever gets an attorney and gets to the court first and petitions the court to open probate and appoint them as an administrator, the next person to come along wouldn't open up. And once again, I don't think this isn't legal advice, but the next person to come along probably would not try to open probate because probate is already open. I think they'll just petition the court to be the administrator. And then most likely there would be a hearing, and both of them would be there, and their attorneys would both be there, and they would have to persuade the judge, and the judge is going to choose the one that he feels made the most compelling case, and that person, I mean, the judge's word is final. That person will be the administrator of the state. Let's see, next question. Can a court or administrator stop a foreclosure process with a restraining order to a foreclosing lender to stop a foreclosure if there's equity or reverse mortgage scenario? Whew. That's a good question. That's a better question for an attorney. And all I would do was, in this case, so if I got a probate lead and I mail them my first letter and I call them and they say, hey, yeah, thanks for calling. We do have a question for you. Can a court administrator stop the foreclosure process with a restraining order, or stop a reverse mortgage, I would say you need an attorney. Do you have one? So I would refer that one. You know, this is one of those cases where you don't want to get caught giving legal advice. Can we get a copy of today's meeting? Yes, Daryl, I'm going to be sending you a link to access the recording and a PDF of the slides. This is from Sean. How does the state to determine who to use for an administrator if a person dies intestate? So typically, a family member will step forward and say, hey, you know, Grandpa died. He had no will. At least we can't find it. Somebody needs to go down and petition the court to open up probate. Let's hire an attorney. And one of us is going to have to be responsible for this. And I typically don't see that people are fighting over who's going to do this, because it's a lot of work to be the administrator. It's more like who loses the draw, or who draws the shortest straw has to go down and open probate and become the administrator. But it's up to the judge. It's up to the judge. And if no one comes forward, then if no one comes forward and there are no family members, the judge appoints a professional that does this for a living. Next question comes from Kay. What percentage of real estate agents work probate listings? Is there competition? I would have to say less than 1%. I would say less than 1%. First of all, it's not exciting, right? You know, you got to deal with people who have lost a loved one. That scares away about 50% of the real estate agents. Second of all, there are attorneys involved. That scares away about 99% of real estate agents. And third, you know, it's a little bit of a process. It's not as simple as you know, knock on a door, hey, you plan on moving. It's a little more, but there's very, very little competition. I think the only competition we have really encountered has been from the home investors and We Buy Ugly Houses guys. This comes from Laura. How do I become an administrator? A professional administrator? That's a good question. I don't know how that, you know, most of the time, at least in my area, they're attorneys. I'm sure they have professional administrators in some states. This would be a good question. I would Google it first, and then I would also ask the probate clerk. They'll know. Or a probate attorney for sure would know. Any probate attorney could tell you this. You know, you could get on their website, Google a probate attorney for your area, go to their website. They have a contact me right there because they want to get leads for people that need a probate attorney, and send them an email and ask them, does our state appoint professional administrators? Yes or no? And if so, how do I become one? Next question from Roger. Could probate marketing be done for multiple counties? Yes. So once again, my sister is in Jackson County and Lafayette County. She does business in both. She markets to both. Markets to administrators, and there's still executors there. She markets to executors and administrators in both. I'm in Pinal and Maricopa. I market to both. Doesn't matter to me. It's wherever the case. If the case is in Maricopa, the first thing I do is look to see if the decedent owned real estate in my service area. It's possible the decedent owned real estate in Arizona, but it's 4 hours away from me. You know, I'm in the valley. If they own real estate in Flagstaff, I'm not going to market to that lead. Next lead. I'm looking for a lead where the decedent owned real estate in my service area. I don't market to other. So, and I think the next question is, well, could I market to administrators or personal representatives or executors and try to refer the property out to someone else? Yes, that's possible, but the odds are against you, because this is really the marketing materials are meant to develop a personal relationship between you, the agent, and the person that's in charge of liquidating estate, to show them that you're the expert. Now you're going to hand them off to someone else. I don't think that would work. You could probably sell the lead to somebody, but I don't think it would work for you to do the marketing and then hand them off as a referral. But it's not uncommon, and it's very common actually in Arizona, for a decedent in a probate case here in Arizona to have real estate here in Arizona and have another house in Michigan or Ohio or even Canada. That is very possible, and that's a pretty easy referral opportunity. If you get the listing here, you can say, I can also help you with your other property that you have to sell that's in Michigan. I don't practice there, but I know someone that has gone through training with me on probate that's competent and will handle the process very similar to how I'm going to handle the process here. And so you could get a listing and a referral fee. That's definitely possible. How many leads per month is good for a marketing area? You know, we're just talking about this with my brother and sister. They're just getting started. They're in a county. One county has about 150 a month, and one county has about 50. That's 200 leads a month. That's plenty. Most agents would do good to handle about 100 leads a month, or about 25 a week. 6% should turn in, if you choose the best leads. So you only take 25 of what I'm going to teach you next week are good leads. Each week you end up with 100 leads by the end of the month. Over the course of 6 to 9 months, those should turn into 6 listings. So if you're taking 100 leads a month, 6 to 9 months from now, you should get 6 listings a month. 100 leads a month now means 6 listings a month in 6 to 9 months. If you're in a state where the probate process lasts longer, let's just say next year, you start dealing with 100 leads a month now. Next year you have 6 listings a month. 6 a month is 72 listings a year. I mean, that's a ton. Not very many people can handle 72 listings a year, or nor would they want to. Nor would they want to. Is there a network site for REO Renegade train referrals to other states? There's going to be. So Roger, thank you for asking that. Part of the closed Facebook group or private Facebook group that you're going to be in, all of our agents who have gone through the training process will have access to that, and that'll be a great place for you because everybody in that private Facebook group will have been through this training. Will you be providing, the next question is, will you be providing a recommended CRM tracking system? Yes, we're going to talk about that next week. There's a ton of them for real estate agents. Like Boomtown is one that comes up a lot. Top Producer, I think you can get Top Producer for about $29 a month for a single user. I always recommend using, if you have one, use the one you have now. If you don't have one, buy one that's generic or subscribe to one that's generic. So in case if you change companies, you don't have to start all over from scratch. You just change a few screens in your CRM and you're good to go. I don't recommend using a non-real estate specific contact records management system. The real estate specific ones will make your life so much easier, and you know, you're talking maybe $30, $40 a month. Everybody needs one. You know, if you're going to get 100 leads a month, no matter where they're coming from, you need some kind of contact records management system to put your leads in so you can have some type of drip marketing campaign going to them. But we're going to talk about the ones, we're going to talk probably about 3 of them next week when we talk about getting the leads. All right, are there any additional questions? If not, I'm going to get to work on my homework. And my homework is to do this: get you a link to today's recording, get you a link to download the PDFs from today's presentation so you can print them off, put them in a 3-ring binder if you'd like. Send you a link to download the 2 documents, the flow chart and the timeline. And then send you a link to join the private Facebook group. All right, that's my homework. I will have all of that done within 24 hours. So that's my commitment to you. Once again, you have my email address. If you need to ask me a question before you get the Facebook group invitation, feel free to send me an email, Frank@REO Renegades. And I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Next week's much more exciting. Thank you. Take care. Thank you, Kay.